some of you may be familiar with Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general that famously took elephants over the Alps and took on Rome and almost won.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm not sure if epochs, you may be familiar.
Not sure if there are any students of history in the audience, but it's a little known fact that he is in fact a black man. This is his actual identity. The Carthaginians, famously sub-Saharan African, from their seat of power in Spain and North Africa, and of course originating from Phoenicia, which is sort of around the modern day Syria area.
It's off the coast of Tyre. It's Semitic. Yeah. So the Phoenicians were a Semitic people who founded lots of trade colonies, and Carthage they founded in
just off the coast of Lebanon, isn't it? Modern Lebanon there.
I
believe.
Yeah. But the Phoenicians, famous seafaring trading people, they set up a colony at what we call Tunis now, that happened to be on a very, very advantageous place that connected the Mediterranean, and it grew and became a flourishing power of its own, and that was Carthage. And it was very exclusive. They weren't an incorporative people in the way that Rome was. You couldn't become a Carthaginian citizen. You were born one. And they were definitely Middle Easterners.
Yes.
100%. But, and this is the thing that you hear all the time, but Carthage was in Africa.
This is some proper urban geography, American geography.
Yes.
To use the more politically correct way of putting it.
Yes.
Apparently all of Africa is just the same. That belt of North Africa, that massive desert separating it from sub-Saharan Africa with the two different peoples. Yeah, that doesn't exist. There's no desert there. The Sahara, it's not real.
Which is why all of the North Africans today are all black.
Yeah, that's right. You go to Egypt.
People from Morocco are sub-Saharan blacks. Yeah. They're all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually a conspiracy. It's big globe out to get them.
Hello! My series Contemplations, the longest running series on the website, has a debate out. This is part 2 of our liberalism debate between me and Stelios, who are defending liberalism, even though I'm not a liberal, and Connor and Carl are attacking liberalism, and we're breaking down things, talking about lots of high-minded concepts, and lots of people have found it very interesting so far, and I'm even more confident that the second instalment is very good, and there's even going to be a part 3, so don't miss out, because this is some great political commentary.
We are going to do an epochs at some point, aren't we, about the campaigns of Hannibal?
We absolutely are. The reason I've been sort of kicking them down the line is just because there's just other stuff I've just wanted to do in advance, because we did them a few years ago on History Bro.
Yeah, do check that out, by the way.
Yeah,
they're very good. I've watched them.
But we will do like really long and in-depth.
Because Polybius covers it in fantastic detail.
Yeah. The thing is just me getting around to rereading Polybius, to be honest.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
It's an excellent story, though, isn't it?
It's one of the greatest stories.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Hannibal decided in 218 BC that actually Rome sucks and we hate Rome. And I happen to have an army of 120,000 men, which is really useful, and 40 war elephants. And
just lying around, yeah.
Rome controls the sea, so how am I going to get to Italy? Well, I'm going to cross a mountain range in winter, actually. And
in winter,
and everyone's like, Hannibal, that's a bit nuts, isn't it? I mean, not only is it winter, but that mountain range is full of like barbarous tribes, and they're going to try and kill you. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't care. Watch me get 40 elephants into Italy in the middle of winter. And so at some point in about 217 BC, there was some Gaul who was just standing on a mountainside, probably thinking, right, I'm going to shoot that goat with my bow. And then he heard the brrr of an elephant and looked up and saw a series of elephants tramping down out of the mountains. And must be like, right, this is mad.
Eating something strange.
Yeah,
what am I seeing?
Exactly. Just like, what did I eat yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
And that was sort of just the opening salvo in a string of incredible events, right? That's just the first one.
He was an excellent general. I think that,
one of the best of all time. I personally, I'm a huge Hannibal fanboy, and I think he's the GOAT. So, come at me in the comments, by the way.
Yeah, the Romans kind of employed Russian-style tactics. I know that's an anachronistic comparison, but it's just sort of human waves, masses
to begin with.
Yeah.
In the defense of the Romans, though, the Romans did have a good institution in their military, right? So they didn't have to be very creative to win battles, because most of the time it was just the quality of the training and discipline and the standardized procedures that they had was good enough to basically win battles against like the Celtic tribes or the Greeks or whoever, right? The average Roman soldier was quite good quality. They had quite good equipment. They had quite a good institution behind them, quite martial leaders. So overall, this was a very successful thing. But the thing is, Hannibal was a genius and knew what the Romans were about. And that's not good enough.
He was also aware of how the Romans would behave because they had this very stratified way of operating. You know, you could predict what they were going to do quite easily and counter it. And that as I understand it, obviously I'm not the historian.
No, that's totally true. And the Romans were definitely very confident as well because they're coming off a string of victorious wars. You know, they've pacified Italy. They've already fought the Carthaginians to a standstill in Sicily. They are the likely winners of any battle, basically, because they've got a good army and they're very, very militaristic and they just go straight for the kill. And so it's like, okay, well, you know, why not? Why don't we just attack Hannibal then? And I mean, I won't go into the whole thing, but
just super quick to say, there's just a three-piece of just brilliant successes, aren't there?
Staggering.
At the River Trebbia up in the mountains and Lake Trasimene, my personal favourite, Lake Trasimene, and of course Cannae.
That's
three masterstrokes that tacticians today, I think they are taught.
Oh, they absolutely.
I still use his tactics.
Sandhurst.
Like this is how you can do an amazing ambush.
Yeah.
Get in the mind of your enemy, all that stuff.
I had a friend who went to Sandhurst. He had to learn about this. And the thing is, the thing about Hannibal's like 3 initial victories is that each one's better than the last.
Right, yeah.
You know, it's like normally it's like, right, you got your big victory and then kind of limping along a bit until it's over. No. Hannibal just keeps raising the ante. And so like one of the best, and the thing is, Hannibal's such a great general. The Romans built statues of him. Like we have Roman statues of Hannibal. So it was like, okay, he may have been a mortal enemy, but look how amazing this guy was. You can't get around it, you know?
Polybius himself is something of a fanboy, isn't he?
Yeah, you can't help it.
Like, he was a worthy enemy. Absolutely a worthy enemy.
Unbelievable enemy. And against any other state, Hannibal would have just crushed them. If it wasn't Rome, everyone else would have just lost. You know, no questions asked.
And Fabius is everything wrapped up with the Roman general Fabius. But go and check it out if you want to know how it all ended.
Yes.
But back to.
But the most important thing is that he was a black man.
So just to be clear, we know what we're talking about when we talk about Hannibal. We know what we're talking about when we talk about the Rome and the ancient world and who the Carthaginians were and who Hannibal was, and
so we know that Denzel Washington is the perfect casting for Hannibal, of course.
So I'm going to be slightly controversial. I care less about Denzel Washington as the fact that he's black. Because Denzel Washington's quite a good actor, actually.
I like him as an actor. He's in lots of good films.
Yeah, and I'm not, obviously it's not historically accurate to have a black guy as a Carthaginian, but Denzel Washington is a decent actor. So, okay, I can get past that, or at least not care about that as much. The thing that actually really bothers me is the age of Denzel Washington. He's 68.
Yeah.
Is he that old?
Yeah, exactly, right. Is he that old?
68.
Yeah, he's 68, right?
Okay.
So Hannibal was 25 when he was given command of the army in Spain because his brother died, Hannibal the Handsome. I think his name is Hannibal the Handsome. And then he was 29 when he launched the invasion of Italy. So he's less than half Denzel Washington's age. Like, that's mad. I mean, Hannibal died at 64 or 66. It's not sure because but he was younger than Denzel Washington when he poisoned himself.
Right.
And so it's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
If you've got to have a black guy doing it, have a guy who's in his 30s.
It is worth mentioning as well, this is being made for Netflix.
Of
so
course it's being made for
that's, I think, the incentive, because Netflix is very egregious for doing this sort of thing. I categorically refuse to watch anything they put out. Definitely don't pay for it, that's for sure. But just to hammer it home a little bit, there's a statue of Hannibal. There is a sort of colorized recreation of what he might have looked like, and there is Denzel Washington.
Yes. I mean, Hannibal looks like your average Middle Easterner. Denzel Washington doesn't. Okay, fair enough. All right, fair enough. I'm like I said, I'm so inured to the blackwashing of things. I'm kind of over it, and I do like Denzel Washington's actor, so I'm like, okay. But it's just the age, though. Like Hannibal at Cannae, he was in the front lines with the Gauls, controlling the retreat as the Romans pushed in. Go look up the Battle of Cannae; it's amazing. He's a fighting man. Like he is not like just an old dude who sits at the back.
Yeah.
This might be a controversial opinion, but I'm of the opinion that if you're depicting a historic figure, you have to look like that person. I know
I agree.
Very controversial these days, but
no, I agree, and that would be the ideal thing that you would do. But like I can think of worse people than Denzel Washington as actors, right?
At
So-
least say Joaquin Phoenix kind of looks a little bit like Napoleon
But even
in
though
his
he's too
depiction.
old.
Oh, you mentioned
He
the
is-
guy that played Hannibal on TV a few
Yeah.
years ago.
John, can you?
I've already
something
got it in
Bashir
the.
Oh,
mentioned.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
I do actually have
Okay.
a segment prepared. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry. One thing
I'll
I
let you
would
carry
say
on.
though is, did you see fairly recently? I think it was on Netflix as well. But they did a Cleopatra thing
She
I
was black,
covered
wasn't
that.
she?
Yeah, yeah,
with Will Smith wife who wrote it, or the producer. or something.
yeah. That's right.
And I think the actual state of Egypt
They
launched some sort of legal
They
action.
did.
They did,
Suits
yeah.
them.
I'd be interested if Tunisia, I guess it would be the state of Tunisia, if
Yeah,
their
I guess so.
government said, no, you can't just misrepresent our history like this.
Yeah.
Of course, when it happens to us, like someone like Henry V is played by
Or Anne Boleyn.
or Anne Boleyn, we wouldn't
No one
really dream of bringing a legal action. But I liked it when the
Yeah.
Egyptians did that. I think that was bloody brilliant,
No,
actually.
good for
I
them.
quite like.
And
that, yeah.
I'd love it if the Tunisians, I suppose it would be the modern Tunisians,
Well,
did the
he's
same.
like a hero, historic figure, isn't he? For them,
Right, yeah.
Oh yeah.
He would be, among their greatest heroes,
It
no
would
doubt.
be
no
like
doubt.
the Greeks having Alexander usurped. I think that actually happened.
That has happened, and Achilles. There was a remake
Yeah.
of Troy with a black guy as Achilles.
Was
It's
there?
just silly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the-
Achilles famously had blonde hair, by the way.
this is the director. He's worked with Denzel Washington a lot, and so I think that
Right, so
perhaps-
that's why he's done it.
I think so. And also, he's been asked by Netflix, and he's a black guy having a black guy play Hannibal. I think there's a certain amount of that from the Netflix side of things.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But he's actually done quite a few good films. If
Yeah,
I
yeah.
scroll down, not produced. No one cares about producers. Sorry, John. I'm only joking.
Producers of movies, John.
Yeah. Where's the mouse? I can't get it to. There we go. Here we go. So yeah, he's done loads of quite famous, well-received films. The Terminal List is quite highly rated on IMDb.
Right.
Documentary film about Muhammad Ali. I think he did Southpaw, which is a
Right.
boxing film with Jake
Yeah.
Gyllenhaal. He does have directorial chops on him.
Right.
So he's not necessarily going to do a
But
bad
also a
job.
massive chip on his shoulder to the point of rewriting history.
But
Yeah.
it's just, but I just like get a
Obviously.
young black guy if that's how you've got to do it. Like, because I'm thinking of like Harrison Ford as like 80-year-old Indiana Jones. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Mm.
But at some point, Hannibal's going to have to be depicted on the battlefield, running and fighting. And Denzel Washington is 68 years old.
Mhm.
Like, it's going to be like geriatric. And
Mhm.
come on, that's.
Mm.
And I'm a fan of Denzel Washington, but just like he's just past the prime, man.
Mhm. So this has been done before.
Yeah.
The History Channel portrayed Hannibal as black,
Yes, they
and
did.
the Atlanta Black Star here is whinging about it. Surprise, surprise.
Really?
Who'd have thought? I know. And Denzel Washington has also done similar things like this before. Denzel Washington
yeah.
wants viewers to look past Macbeth's race. I get the impression from Denzel Washington, maybe I'm being charitable. I think Bo might call me out on this, but I think he just wants to play interesting roles, and I think he's
Maybe.
somewhat limited in the fact that he's a black guy and he wants to play roles that are historically white.
And that's why I'm actually generally a bit more forgiving in this instance.
Mhm.
Like, he strikes me as a sort of actor who might at least try and respect the
Well,
character he's trying to portray.
from
right?
my understanding, there's a video here where he's talking about systematic racism and incarceration,
Yeah.
and he basically says it's not race, it's culture. And he brings up an 11-year-old kid in Chicago who murdered someone, and the first thing he says is, "Well, where was his father?" It all starts in the home.
Well, at least
You
he's
just
not-
need to be better people.
Yeah, at least he's putting the onus of responsibility on the community itself rather than
Mhm.
mythological systems
He's not
of
saying
oppression.
it's the system,
Yeah, yeah.
as they're trying to prop him up to say. And again, here he is saying it's not color, it's culture. And he also got asked about diversity at the Oscars. And I'm going to read a direct quote from CBS. It says, "To those who think the Academy's process is unfair, he says, yeah, and so what? You going to give up? If you're looking for an excuse, you'll find one. Is race the excuse? You can find it anywhere you like," says Washington. "Can't live like that. Just do the best you can do."
I actually really respect that opinion.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so what? Get on with it.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. Even if it is, get on with it.
Playing Macbeth, a Scotsman,
Sure.
Mm.
is. I wonder what Denzel might have to say if a white man was cast as Mensa Musa, let's say, I think he'd probably pipe up, actually.
Maybe, but I just don't get the impression that he wants to, like, because maybe it's because we've got such a plethora of young actors and actresses who are outright trying to disrespect the previous thing, like the Snow White woman, the one who played Snow White with the weird far apart eyes, like, and who was just insane and like it seems to have actually destroyed Disney's version of Snow White, like with her genuinely disrespectful attitude towards the property. Like, I don't think Denzel Washington is going to take that kind of attitude, so I'm a lot less angry that it's him, even though he doesn't fit the role. Like, I'm actually more concerned about the age thing, you know. But you are obviously correct. I mean, Hannibal wasn't black. This is going to be a mismatched casting, but there could be worse people.
Yeah,
you know?
no, fair enough. You know, I just the old if it was reversed, what would the reaction be? You know, there's a biopic of Nelson Mandela and they cast Ryan Gosling,
which is a great.
I think old Denzel would probably have a word or two.
Yes,
I would have thought
maybe.
But when it's the other way around, you can play Macbeth. It's fine. Don't mention it.
I mean, we've got to see it happen, really, don't we? I wasn't able to find anything of him commenting, saying, "Oh, you're disrespecting a black person or such and such." I just couldn't find it. Maybe it's not reported on. I mean, I don't know, but we can only kind of guess, can't we? So there were lots of interesting reactions to this. I'm going to start with a Wee Was Kang's sort of reaction in this one, and if you can humour me reading it out, because it is amusing. Carthage had been settled by Phoenicians as a city-state in North Africa near current Tunis. In his 1961 work, French historian Gabriel Ordisio commented that he considered Hannibal to be neither Phoenician nor Carthaginian nor Punic, but a North African. Which,
Hannibal was definitely a Phoenician, which means which is the Latin is Punic. Yeah, he was definitely a Carthaginian. His family was one of the leading families in Carthage.
Also, who were the North Africans if not those people? Right?
No, they were Libyans, and
of course, but they were further south, weren't they? They were sort of
further east.
Isn't there like the Berber people? I mean, that's what they're called today.
Yeah.
Someone like Zinedine Zidane. Yeah. Categorically not sub-Saharan Africa.
No, it's crystal clear, and there's just no debate over it.
So it carries on saying the majority of the Punic populace seems to have had African, indeed, old-timey N-word ancestry. I'm not going to
absolutely not true.
No, it's
the
not true.
Carthaginians were really racially exclusive, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Romans had a very incorporative structure, which is probably why they succeeded, whereas the Carthaginians had a very exclusive structure, which is probably one of the reasons that they failed.
Yeah, they were sort of supremacists in a sense. They weren't inclusive.
No,
it was more like a mercantile empire.
Yeah,
the Carthaginian Empire. It was more like something akin to Genoa or Venice in the Middle Ages. It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't like it was very, very different in style and tone and tenor to the Roman Empire.
Oh yeah, completely. But it was definitely an ethnic empire. Like, I mean, like Roman emperors include people from all over the empire. Like you have Philip the Arab, Maximinus Rex. You've got exactly. You've got all sorts of but there were never any Carthaginian rulers who were not ethnically Phoenician. Like that's the thing. The Carthaginian Empire was an ethnic trading empire where the Phoenicians, by dint of birth and blood, were the rulers of what was underneath them. You know, you could become a mercenary leader or something like that if you were foreign, but you were never going to become like a ruler in the city. You know, it just didn't happen. There's just no record of it happening. And so, like, to say, oh, well, these guys were black. No, they weren't. They were literally racist, actually. You know, the Carthaginians were a very racist civilization. You know, way more racist than the Romans, actually, who were actually quite incorporative.
Wasn't Hanno the Navigator Carthaginian, and they went down to Africa, and didn't they presume that a monkey or a gorilla was a person?
Yeah. Apparently, they thought some gorillas were a type of people.
Yeah, but that's actually quite common. Like they used to call them like wild men and stuff like that because they didn't have the kind of taxonomical categories. So they'd assume that like lots of different kinds of apes were humans.
There's all sorts of strange things like people thought that walruses were mermaids and things.
Yeah.
Or that a man riding a horse is actually a centaur. There's all sorts of things in the ancient world where they just saw something and came to a weird conclusion about it. So you can't blame them.
Yeah. That wasn't like them trying to be prejudiced or something. It's just them not knowing what.
Literally knew no better.
Yeah.
So to carry on, whether described as Carthaginians, Phoenicians, or Punics of North Africa, according to Ordisio's research, They were certainly a mix of Aboriginal North Africans, that's a weird term to use, that included native Berber, Moors, and other groups. The image, this image, the one there, is not a flattering image, to be honest, is a coin bearing the image of Hannibal and his famed battalion of elephants. Well, the bottom one, perhaps, but I don't think that top one has much resemblance to the statues of Hannibal that were made.
Or the coins of Hannibal.
No. It seems like a very strange case to make. Also, there's no inscription to suggest it's Hannibal at all.
No.
So there's speculation at the end of it.
There was a sort of population of Libyo-Phoenicians where it's like they're intermixing. But they were not part of the main sort of aristocratic families of Carthage. They were just a really racist civilization, which, okay, well, that's what they were like. But anyway. But even then, they weren't black. Like, the Libyans weren't black.
Of course not. And nor are they today.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I mean, if they were in the past, what happened in the interim?
Yeah.
So on the more sane side, we have Robert Sether, who's an anthropologist with a YouTube channel, saying, that's it. I've been pushed to my edge. Cleopatra is one thing, but depicting the Phoenicians as sub-Saharan is a declaration of war. Next video will be calm and cool as usual. The content will be blatantly savage. Expect an academic bloodbath. I will take no woke prisoners. That's the kind of fighting language I like to hear.
That's completely correct. Obviously.
And on the more humorous side, the comedian Hannibal Buress, who has a part in his stand-up routine where he talks about his name Hannibal not being from Hannibal Lecter, but from the general, in admiration of history, and how it scares women away because they think he's a serial killer. And finally, when a black man is playing Hannibal, he gets overlooked, and he's a bit salty about it, I think. So I wanted to end on a bit of levity. Also, I enjoy his stand-up. It's quite funny. But yes, obviously, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, I respect Denzel Washington as an actor, and I also respect the director, although clearly...
how much of it is Netflix as well?
Yeah, Netflix clearly has a part to play, but I also think that if you're depicting history, depict it accurately or not at all. I'm not interested in this weird modern subversion of things. I think it's kind of pathetic.
Ridley Scott.
Get your own history. You know, there's history there. Just, you know, if you want to depict Black history, choose something, depict it accurately. Don't co-opt other people's history. It's weird.
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's just really disrespectful. It's like, no, we're not going to tell the story of a black guy.
If you actually care about history, you know, you want it to be done right. And if, you know, you get a bunch of... I find it a bit weird when you get, you know, in old-timey films, you get Middle Easterners depicted as a white person with just brown face makeup. I'm just like, I can recognize those features. You're not fooling me.
Yeah, like Faisal in Lawrence of Arabia.
That's what I had in mind, yeah.
Alec Guinness browned up to play an Arab. I mean, to be fair, this isn't as egregious. The other night I saw on TV flicking around late at night, I think it was the actual Royal Shakespeare Society, although it may not have been. Either way, there was a rendition of Richard III.
Yeah.
And Richard III was being played by a black woman. Who also chose to play it as just shouting all of her lines. It was
bad acting as well.
I watch for more than a few minutes, but as far as the blackwashing of non-black history goes, it's not that egregious.
No,
but he's certainly too old.
Yeah, that's the thing that really bothers me.
And it's obviously completely deliberate.
Yeah,
and I mean.
It's another example.
To me, as a historian, it is a disgusting thing to do. We wouldn't really dream of doing it the other way around. You know, like Chris Pratt playing Nelson Mandela or something. It's just, you wouldn't, it would be so weird and like...
I think AI might be able to make that happen.
Thanks very much for watching this segment from the podcast Lotus Eaters. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did and want to find more of what we do, you can subscribe to our website for as little as £5 per month and get access to all of the premium videos that we do, including Bo's Epoch series, currently on episode 132, where the most recent episode he sat down with Godfrey Bloom to discuss the Great War. And if you sign up at the moment to the website through Stripe and use code BIRTHDAY, you can get 33% off of your first 3 month subscription. So take advantage of that while you can. Furthermore, if you'd like to follow Bo and see what he gets up to, then you can follow him on Twitter at HistoryBro1. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.